Boxing with myself, Ian Payne. In the studio with me is Steve Bunce. And we're also joined, I'm pleased to say, by the former IBF light welterweight and WBA welterweight champion, Paulie Malignaggi. How are you, Paulie?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
I'm very good. Live from New York. We've been hearing about the Fury-Chisora fight that's been cancelled, by the way. If you missed anything, this programme will be available as a podcast shortly after the show. Let's move on to another possible future British world champion, Kell Brook, who's set for an IBF World Welterweight title bout against Shawn Porter on August the 16th at the StubHub Centre in Carson, California. What's your view of Kell Brook? I think it's 32 fights and no losses so far, Paulie.
Yeah, I think he's a talented fighter. He's shown some good pop in his hands, and he's a pretty big guy for a welterweight as well. So, I think he's certainly ready for a world title fight, and he's shown that he's the goods during the duration of his career.
Future star, if not a star already, Steve, Kell Brook.
Yeah, he's done absolutely nothing wrong, Kell, except he's had not as much bad luck as Tyson Fury, but I think he's fought 5 or 6 eliminators, including several final eliminators. He's had 2 world title fights collapse, one because of him and one because of his opponent. And Paulie, I don't know if you've been following what's happened with Tyson Fury. His 3rd fight in 9 months, fallen out of bed at very short notice. But Brook's the same thing. How hard is that, Paulie, if you train for a fight 7, 8, 9, 10, even 11 weeks, and a fight falls out of bed 6 or 7 days before the first bell?
I can't imagine. It's never happened to me that close to the fight, but I can't imagine the frustration because at that point you're close to weight, but you're making weight, where in the case of the heavyweights it won't really matter as far as the weight's concerned, but you've spent money in training camp, you've spent money on sparring partners, you've spent money just preparing for the fight. You've also spent your physical energy and your mental energy as far as being totally ready for the fight, and you're almost at that point where the fight is kind of the reward, going for that victory and going for that, getting paid and then going for the victory and getting on to the next step in your career is also the reward, and then suddenly it's just taken away from you like that. So it's these are things that happen in boxing. Injuries happen, and unfortunately, it's always a part of the risk of preparing for a big fight.
Well, let's hope nothing happens between now then and August the 16th in California. Kell Brook, unbeaten, set for an IBF World Welterweight title bout against Shawn Porter. And Brook says that after previous disappointments, he is now ready to become a world champion.
That what's happened to me before has made me more stronger, made me more focused. I'm 28 now, and this is definitely going to be my better years. I'm so ready for this fight, and I've been training a while, and I can't wait now to become world champion.
Now, last time around, it was supposed to be against Devon Alexander. This time, Shawn Porter. Is it a more difficult proposition, and not just because Porter's beaten Alexander?
No, I think it's definitely an hard fight. I think style makes fights. We've seen Shawn Porter. He's a thick-set kid, come forward, strong. But I believe that I've got every answer. To give. I think I can come back and answer all the questions that are going to get found out on the night, and I know that I've definitely got it in the locker to come out of there, go out there and put a show on and win in style.
Now, he dismantled Paulie Malignaggi quite brutally. A lot of people were surprised by that. Were you?
Yeah, I was surprised. We had a guy who's not stopped known for 2 years before that. And then he got out there and stopped Paulie Malignaggi, who was beating with some unbelievable punches, and it did surprise me, but that's boxing. That's the way. That's it.
And in the modern era, of course, people point to drugs and whether there was sufficient drug testing. What have you got in place for your fight?
Well, I've made sure. I've heard rumours like this. Let's not think about it, but. The thing is we had in the contract that we want random drug testing in this fight. So, as long as that gets put, is playing that part, then I'm happy.
Now, if you win the title, of course, it gives you such scope in what is very nearly the most exciting division in the world of boxing at the moment.
Definitely. Like you just said, once I become world champion, there's straight away to the domestic fight. I think I'm talking about. you know, there's international
Mr. Khan.
Mr. Khan, Queen Khan. And, there's some international fights out there, and, you know, it opens the door to some superb fights.
And when you talk about Amir Khan, you know, this summer we had Froch against Groves. The big domestic fights still can really register over here, can't they?
Definitely. I think, like you said, that after seeing Froch Groves and how much money is involved and how, you know, how many people came out to see that is unbelievable. And I believe me and that other guy can fill that again, you know, because it's been going on a while, and you know, like I keep putting across, you know, I think when I win this world title, I think that fight will automatically come together.
You think it's a Wembley Stadium fight?
Maybe. I think, you know, I believe that it can hit that kind of them figures.
It needs that kind of animosity. It also needs the belief that both sides can win, and it's got that kind of appeal.
Yeah, you know, I've heard a lot of people, everyone who talks to me about it always, when are you going to be fighting Khan or whatever, and you know, I've heard people say, oh, I think that he'll beat you, and you know, and vice versa. So that's what you want. That's what you want in a fight. As long as myself and my team know what will happen in that fight, you know, it's great for the fans that they can't split us.
And you said the banter's been happening for a long time. It goes back to when you sparred on England training camps. Put the rumour to bed. What did happen?
What did happen is, you know, what did happen is him coming forward and him getting counter punched all day. And he said the same, that he played with me, but the fact is, you know, I dealt with him in sparring. You know, 15 and off 15, I dealt with him, and I'll deal with him again.
Kell Brook talking to our boxing correspondent Mike Costello. Steve Bunce is with me in the studio. On the phone in New York is Paulie Malignaggi. As Mike mentioned there, you know how good Shawn Porter is. What sort of advice would you give to Kell Brook, Paulie?
I think Kell has to just box his fight and come with the confidence that he's bringing to the table, and the confidence in his own style and the confidence in his boxing ability. You know, he sounded very confident in the interview. You know, and that shows you that he's been very well prepared in the training camp. You know, the bottom line when you're in a big fight, when you're in a championship fight, the main thing going into the fight is believing that you've done all the proper work, and believing that the work you've put into training camp has put you to at your peak level, and your peak to be able to perform at your peak level. You know, so I think from the way Kell is talking and speaking, he sounds pretty confident. He sounds like he's ready for ready for the moment he's been waiting for, which is, you know, all fighters before they win that first world championship. That's all they're really thinking about. I think Kell is at that moment where he's very hungry, and you know, he's ready to, you know, tackle a very tough fight. I mean, they don't give away world championships, so I don't think Kell expects that it's going to be given to him. But I think Kell is prepared, knowing that, you know, he's ready for the toughest fight of his career, and that's the right mindset to have when you're going into a fight for the world championship.
Let me ask you this, Paulie. Do you think Kell would have fared better against Devon Alexander than he will against the new Shawn Porter next month?
Oh, no. You know, that's the thing. I don't know. And it's funny that you say that, Bunty, the new Shawn Porter, because really, before he fought me, he hadn't had a KO in 2 years, and before he fought Devon Alexander, he was barely hurting anybody he was hitting. And I spoke to Devon Alexander's trainer and told me, and Kevin Cunningham told me himself, Devon was hurt several times in the fight, and kept telling him how strong Shawn was afterwards. You know, so you know, this is certainly the new Shawn Porter. And before the Devon Alexander fight and the Paulie Malignaggi fight, when he fought myself, obviously. We weren't really seeing a very powerful Shawn Porter. We were seeing a physically strong Shawn Porter. We were seeing a guy who can basically win fights by roughing you up and taking away your rhythm by forcing a good pace, a sloppy pace, but nonetheless making guys uncomfortable. And he hadn't yet stepped up to world class, but he had beaten some decent fighters. Had he looked like a world beater? Absolutely not. So you know, Kell going up against the Devon Alexander that we had seen at those times, that would have been a great fight. It would have been a tactical fight between two very smart boxers. It would have also been an entertaining fight because, you know, I don't think Devon matches the ring intelligence. I don't think Devon matches the power of Kell Brook, but, you know, Devin has a lot of ring intelligence, and, you know, we would have seen how Kell would have dealt with the southpaw stance, the slick southpaw stance of Alexander. So it was actually a fight I was really anticipating to see myself from a fan's point of view. The Shawn Porter fight, it just kind of sneaks up on everybody, you know, because a year ago, there wasn't really anybody talking about Shawn Porter. Now he's kind of burst onto the scene with these two performances. And from that perspective, I'm not going to say Kell is worse off fighting Porter than he is Devin. I think it's just a totally different stylistic fight. And, you know, you prepare differently, you train differently for a guy like Shawn Porter than you would for Devin Alexander. So I think Kell knows what he needs to do. I think Kell knows the type of training camp he needs to have. And from that perspective, you know, I don't expect to see a Kell Brook that's not ready. At this point, you've waited your whole career for a moment like this.
Steve, who'd be the favourite, Porter or Brook?
I've got to fancy Porter on the run of form. I saw what he did against Devin Alexander. He looked indestructible. I know Paulie very well. I've spoken to Paulie intimately off the record, and be honest with you, he's a dangerous man at the moment. Porter. He shocked Paulie with his power. He shocked Devin with his power, and I have a fear. And I loved Kell. I've known him since he was 9 years of age. I just have a feeling he might be too powerful for Kell.
Here's the thing that it's funny that I was working last weekend at a local boxing show in San Francisco, and Shawn Porter and Kenny Porter came up to me talking about how, you know, the fact that there was no drug testing in my fight with Shawn Porter, or no random drug testing, and there was no random drug testing in the Devin Alexander fight. But they assured me that they would be all for random drug testing, and so I shouldn't be talking so much about the lack of drug testing that there was. Because, you know, obviously the curiosity will fly when not only was I knocked out, but I was very close to being put into a coma from what the doctor told me at the hospital. So, you know, obviously I'm going to be very curious myself.
Is that the hardest you've ever been hit?
Hardest by far I've ever been hit. And Miguel Cotto was a big puncher. But you know, Miguel Cotto you kind of anticipated. Regardless of the fact, I feel like I got to put this out there because Kell was saying that he implemented random drug testing in the contract, but Kenny Porter was telling me that they were okay with doing random drug testing for the Kell Brook fight, but that Eddie Hearn was just talking, but there was no random drug testing. Now, I don't know what's being told on what side, but, you know, I feel like I should put this out there in case Kell does think that there's random drug testing going on, because according to Kenny Porter, there is no random drug testing going on.
Steve?
That's a very interesting point. As you say, if Kenny Porter and Shawn are telling you that there's none put in, yet Kell is adamant. He's convinced that there is going to be drug testing. Excuse me, Freudian slip there. Drug testing. So we'll have to, in all fairness, Paulie, I'll have to chase that up because Kell needs to know before he gets on a plane. They need to know before they get to California for the fight that there's definitely going to be some testing, especially random testing in place.
Who do you think's the favourite, Paulie?
That's the thing. You need random testing. I mean, it's what you sign up for is random testing because the commission will test your urine on fight night, but unless you're an idiot, that's not really a drug test, you know. So you know, I think everybody's under the impression that there's random drug testing for the fight, but according to Kenny Porter, he was saying that there is not random drug testing for the fight, and it ended up coming up in the conversation because they approached me because they basically didn't appreciate too much some of the things that they interpreted that I was saying. I basically said, you know what, you know, Shawn just was really strong, and you know, I'm not saying anything else. I said,
okay,
Shawn was really strong, but basically in that conversation when I was explaining myself, Kenny Porter, I don't know if I wouldn't say slipped up, but he certainly came out with the fact that there is no random drug testing for the Porter fight, for the Kell Brook fight.
And who would you say would be favourite in your opinion on this fight, Brook or Porter?
It's hard to say because Kell is so naturally gifted, so naturally talented, but Porter is really good at disrupting your rhythm. And, you know, a guy who disrupts your rhythm is one thing, but a guy who disrupts your rhythm and can really punch hard, it's a totally different animal you're fighting. So it depends, you know, because Kell's punching power is certainly more than my punching power, certainly more than Devin Alexander's punching power. Shawn Porter, even when he wasn't looking impressive earlier in his career, certainly always had a great chin. So I'm not sure that the punching power would matter anyway. But it's certainly a great clash of styles between two guys who were really at a great point in their careers, and you know, it's from a fan's point of view, it's certainly a delightful fight to anticipate.
Going to be a good fight. Paulie, thank you very much for sparing us the time to talk to us tonight. Paulie Malignaggi, live from New York. And do you think that the Amir Khan fight with Brook will happen, or are we getting too far ahead of ourselves, Steve?
We're getting a little bit far ahead of ourselves because providing Kell can pull it off out there, and as I say, I think he has to start as an underdog. If he can beat Shawn Porter. Gives himself a bit of an American platform. Khan's already established on American TV. Khan actually has to deal with American TV company Showtime. Khan has his own deal. I think that fight could happen. Will it do Wembley 80,000? No. Will it do outside 25-30 at the right time next May, next June? It's possible. And it's a fight that Khan will not run away from. And Khan, Paney, I know he's been beaten a couple of times, and I know he's been in a few scrapes with the tabloid press. But if you look at his record, it's one of the finest ever compiled by a British boxer. He's very underestimated.
Is he going to fight Mayweather, briefly?
Yeah, he's got the Mayweather fight next May. Yeah.
Has he?
So, no, he's not going to fight Kell Brook for 1.2 million, 2 million, when he's going to walk away with about 10 million US or 50 million US for Mayweather. That's where Khan is. And that's where, in all fairness, Khan belongs.